Hi Pre-Calc, I'm answering question number 11 on 5.4. You need to find the sine and cosine of 11 pi over 12. Don't worry about the tangent, we're not doing the tangent. So the sine of 11 pi over 12 and the cosine of 11 pi over 12. They give you the breakdown of the angle into the standard angles that we know by heart without a calculator. So I wrote the formula here for the sine of u plus v. So when we find 11 pi over 12, they already gave us u and v, so we just plug it into the formula. All right, so you just plug the u and v into the formula, and then you have to evaluate u and v. So you have to have two pictures. So if u is 3 pi over 4, you have to draw that. It's going to put you here. So if your original angle is 3 pi over 4, that means that your reference angle has to be pi over 4, and then that means that you know what the triangle is. And you have to watch out what your plus and minuses are because you're in quadrant 2, right? So some people like to put the -1 here. Right, your v is pi over 6. That's quadrant 1. Pi over 6, you should have that memorized. That's 30 degrees, so that's 1 radical 3 and 2. And you have to know your pluses and minuses in this quadrant as well. All right, so now I'm just going to plug it in. So sine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be the opposite over the hypotenuse. I'm just already going to rationalize that. It's radical 2 over 2. It's positive. The cosine of pi over 6, I have to go over here. That's adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's radical 3 over 2. The cosine of 3 pi over 4, I have to go over here. Cosine of 3 pi over 4 is going to be -1 over radical 2, but I'm going to rationalize that. So it's going to be negative radical 2 over 2. And sine of pi over 6, I have to go over to this one. So sine of this is 1/2. I usually don't rationalize, but you'll notice that if you don't rationalize here, your answer won't match the book, and it'll look really weird. So I'll just rationalize to match it. But on the test, on the next test, I don't care if you do or not. All right, now I'm going to multiply radical 2 times radical 3 is radical 6 over 4. Radical 2 times 1 is negative radical 2 over 4. So the final answer for this one is going to be radical 6 minus radical 2 over 4. Okay, that is for the sine. And you have to do the same thing for the cosine. So same, okay, so that was for the sine, but you have to do the same thing for the cosine of u plus v. So I wrote it out here. Here's the formula. Remember, if this is positive, this is negative. This is the original angle. This is the breakdown of u and v. So I'm going to plug u and v into the formula. So cosine of 3 pi over 4, cosine of pi over 6 minus sine of 3 pi over 4, sine pi over 6. Okay, so I'm just putting u and v in there. And now, just like we did before, we have to use our u and v to evaluate this. Okay, so I have to do cosine of 3 pi over 4. Cosine of 3 pi over 4, remember we're over here and it's going to be negative because it's quadrant 2. It's negative radical 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 6, radical 3 over 2. Minus sine. Okay, so opposite over hypotenuse. I'm going to rationalize. Positive radical 2 over 2. Sine of pi over 6, 1/2. Alright, I'm going to do the math here, crunch it out. You'll notice the answers always look very similar. That's fine. There's always going to be like that for this section. Okay, and that's going to be the cosine of 11 pi over 12. Okay, I hope that clarifies it. So not only are you using the formulas, you have to actually draw the angles and know what the reference angle is, what the sides of the triangle are, what the plus or minus is. Okay, so there's a lot of like detail in here when you figure this out. And then you have to use these diagrams to finish the question. All right, I'll catch you in another video. Bye-bye.